Congress is set to vote this week on a bill that could ban TikTok in the United States.
We simply cannot allow an app controlled by our nation's foremost adversary and competitor to take over the American media landscape.
The legislation would require ByteDance, the Chinese parent company of the popular app, to sell off its stake in the company. Otherwise, TikTok could be blocked from American phones. Biden has said he will sign the bill if it's passed, despite TikTok's mass popularity. With more on this, I want to bring in tech analyst Carmi Levy. Carmi, good morning to you. So do you think that the U.S. is going to go through with this? I mean, banning TikTok seems like a very tall mountain to climb. This is an app used by millions of people.
A ban is like the nuclear option, Marcia, and we'd be forgiven for thinking that haven't we seen this before? Indeed, we have. Donald Trump tried the same thing when he was president, tried to force a sale to an American company. At one point, Walmart was at the front of the line to purchase the American interests of ByteDance, the TikTok app itself, and that ultimately collapsed under pressure from the courts. The courts rejected it. Montana tried the same thing within its state borders and ran into the same problem here. So what's changing here now is that they're trying to fix it through legislation. In other words, make sure that there's a law in place so that it sticks, that it survives any possible challenge in the court. But a ban is an incredibly difficult thing to do, both from a legislative perspective as well as a technological one, to stop hundreds of millions. I think there are 170 million users of TikTok in the US alone, to stop them from using it on their phones, prevent anyone else from accessing it, geo-block it, and then make sure that any workarounds are addressed as they come up, because inevitably they will be. It's a massive job on a number of fronts, and it's never been done before, all to keep one app out of the hands of millions of people.
Forgive me for sounding cynical, but good luck with that.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It makes for really great political theater. And let's remind ourselves, it's 2024. It's an election year in the U.S. And so here you've got both parties. This is a bipartisan effort at committee level.
They agree. Yeah.
They agree. I mean, how often do they agree on anything? But it scores points with the voters, and both parties know it. And so they're pushing for it. Hey, when in doubt, let's just do some China bashing, whether it ultimately means that the U.S. is safer. And there are concerns around TikTok. It's a huge harvester of data. There's some very shadowy connections between the company and the Chinese government. We don't know for sure if our data ends up in the hands of the Communist Party, but I think it's a safe bet that it does. And so politically, it makes a lot of sense to do that. But, logistically, really, does this ultimately make us safer? Again, the technologist in me, I'm looking at the app stores, millions of apps already there. You'd have to address more than just one app for this to really result in greater technological safety for Americans.
So what's the workaround here, Carmi, to avoid an all-out ban?
I mean, yeah, to avoid a ban, what the company needs to do is sell itself to an American-owned entity. And what that does is it means that if ByteDance, a Chinese-owned company, no longer owns it, and an American company does, then it's no longer subject to that requirement for all Chinese companies to adhere to the rules of the Communist Party of China, that you have to sign that deal if you do business in China. If the government comes calling, you must do what they say, up to and including sharing data with them. ByteDance, for its part, says it has never signed a deal. It would never hand over the data if it was approached. It has never been approached. But we know those promises really don't hold a lot of water. So by shifting ownership of the app to an American company, you essentially cut off that connection to the Chinese government, and in theory anyway, ensure that American data collected from American devices does not end up in Chinese government hands.
So if, and it's a big if, there's no TikTok, where does this leave people not only who are addicted, but also who use TikTok as their profession? Their livelihoods depend on TikTok, Carmi.
They very much do. There's a social media economy around TikTok. Influencers, of course, their entire careers are built around it. Small businesses, particularly, use the app to connect with their audiences. It's a very efficient way to market your products and services. And if that goes dark, obviously, that will have a differential impact on that market. And even though this legislation does not apply to Canada, a lot of Canadian users of TikTok, of course, much of their audience resides in the US, they would lose that access as well. It will hurt hurt north of the border too. And so I would expect anyone who's using TikTok as a key pillar of their career planning or marketing strategy, you've got to be asking yourself the question now, if it goes dark 6-ish months from now, what do I do? What's my plan B? It's never too early to start alternatively planning, because at some point this may yet come to pass, not only in the US, but in other countries too, including ours.
Carmi Levy, he's a tech analyst. Carmi, thank you so much for all of that.